This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome to Movie Battles, where we take the very best in Disney Pixar movie trivia and we put them head to head. And today we have a very special preview special of the Road to the Gold tournament for 2022. That's right. I have here with me today, I, of course, am the Flying Cow, Clay Johnson, and I am your host, but I have here with me today Dr. Megs, Megan McCurley, and the elk himself, Andrew Kelk. How are both of you?
I am doing fantastic. Tournament season is always my favorite in any trivia league I'm involved in, so I am always excited to talk about a tournament.
I've got to say, Cow, and to you as well, Megs, super excited as always to talk about this. It's like Meg says, when there's a tournament coming up, it's something special in the air. You know, there's going to be a whole lot of great movie trivia coming your way. And of course, who couldn't be more thrilled to have me here to help break it all down? That's right, folks. I'm back. It's the elk. Thank you so much, and you are welcome.
Yeah, I apologize, Andrew, that it's me instead of the hammer. Hopefully you can deal with that.
Oh, it's all right. I was, trading text messages earlier with the hammer, just talking about his thoughts on the tournament and all these people who are coming in thinking they're going to break it down and be the next big thing. And, well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but a few of them might be mistaken.
All right. Well, yes, I'm sure the hammer always has his thoughts. In fact, if precedent, if we have precedent, he might make them known.
He might.
I really need to up my firewall.
You do.
Yeah.
You need something over there, because I just feel like every single time he slips in somewhere, and even before that, Nikki was doing the same thing. So there's something not working over there.
You know what it is? Nikki they worked together. They taught each other some tricks.
They probably did. Yeah.
And but anyway, let us go ahead and get into this because, like I said, this is the Road to the Gold 2022 tournament for this tournament season. So let's go ahead and let us take a quick look at this year's tournament bracket. We have a good one this year. We've got the top 16 competitors in here, including the Dream Worker, Cameron Holtzman, Mad Dog Brian Nussbaum, Mr. VHS, Nazario Montenegro, the Chartmaster, Hannah Kiefer, the King, Caleb Coho, the Party Monster, Pardis Jesu Dawson, Jeremy, the Adam Adams, the Fairest, Amanda Van Heil, the Litigator, Lauren Collins, the Bullet, Brandon Rutledge, the Spaniard, David Garcia, the Philosopher, Kevin Poss, the Cooler, Chris Diaz, the Gentleman, Patrick Hill, the Vatriarch, Adelaide Spence, and Dastardly Dan Van Heil. A lot of our best competitors in there. In fact, a few that we didn't expect sneaking their way in there.
They did.
Getting their shot, taking their shot, like I said, and seeing what they can do. I'm very excited to talk about the matchups we have coming up.
Absolutely.
All right. So
where shall we start?
Well, we're going to go ahead and we are going to start with the first match. Now, we haven't shot this. I don't know in what order these matches are going to take place. We will just have to see. But we are going to start with the number 1 seed versus the number 16 seed, and that would be Dastardly Dan Van Heil versus the Dream Worker, Cameron Holtzman. Obviously, like I said, Dan being one of those kind of upset competitors that we did not expect to see in this tournament. In fact, behind the scenes, I didn't actually intend to give him a shot at getting into the tournament because he'd had such a rocky start. But because of scheduling and other people being unavailable, he was able to get, that opportunity. But, let's be honest, I kind of expected him to play Barry Horowitz in those matches. I didn't expect him to end up getting the upset win over two competitors, the matriarch Adelaide Spence and Bethany Bam McGill, but he was able to pull out wins against both of them. He started out 0-3 and then suddenly got a 2-game winning streak.
That's the beauty of either being in the tournament or knowing that a tournament is on the line. Just something clicks in people's minds.
Yeah,
I feel sometimes, and that is definitely the case here. Because again, I agree. We were throwing these matches together, and I was starting to think through how things could possibly pan out, and I shouldn't be surprised because there have been plenty of people in this league that have definitely surprised me, but it was definitely still okay then.
Yeah.
This is happening. Yeah. Very good. It's fun.
And then now, of course, he got his spot, but he has quite the uphill battle against our number 1 seed, the Dream Worker, Cameron Holtzman, because while Dan started 0-3, Cameron started 4-0. He only recently got that first defeat against our current champion, Little Boat, Caleb Boatman. So obviously Cameron coming in here with something to prove. I'm thinking that he's wanting to get back to a title match as soon as possible. And while I kind of love this kind of underdog thing that Dan's got going, I don't think it's going to be Dan that's able to derail Cameron here. But, we've seen weirder things.
Well, let me just jump in here and say first and foremost that it is a good thing to see some representation happening in the league. We've got the Dastardly who are stepping forward. Of course, it's always the good guys you're looking out for, but Dastardly Dan on a tear, as you mentioned, couple of big wins coming into this one. We've got very, very excited people watching these matches because what has Dan done lately? Dan has won his matches. That's the most important thing you can do. And it is the most important thing coming into an environment like this. But I just have to say, as much as I love the bad guy, I want to root for somebody who wants to inflict a little pain, a little punishment on their opponents. At the same time, it's just going to be so difficult. Like the NCAA, when you're talking Sweet 16, number 1 seed is always the impossible mountain to climb. This is K2, this is Everest, and for Dan Van Heil, this is going to be an incredibly difficult task if there's any chance at all. Gotta say, I think everybody's going to give the edge to Cameron here.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead quickly and just get into our picks here because, like I said, it is truly the number 1 seed versus the number 16 seed here. As excited as I've been to see, and let's be honest, Dan's matches haven't been the highest scoring, but he has had 2 matches go to sudden death, and both of them were extremely exciting to watch. So he's a fun competitor to watch, but unfortunately going against somebody of Cameron's caliber, I think it's less a question of who's going to win and more a question of, is Dan going to be able to avoid a TKO or a KO? So I'm definitely giving this to Cameron.
And I agree. I think while, yes, I love watching Dan play these past couple matches, every time I see him, he's always so much fun to interact with, getting to call a couple of his matches. It's always so much fun. but I am definitely going to have to say I give this to Cameron, and I am just wanting to see this match go the distance. I agreed. I hope this is not turned into a KO situation. It's not a TKO. These guys have to battle it out to the end, but I do ultimately give it to Cameron.
Yeah, I'm looking at this matchup here, and on paper, you absolutely have to give it away to Cameron. Of course, I want to be pulling for Dastardly Dan here. I want to say this is going to be the big moment, and I love, Megs, that you said go the distance on this one, because all I can think of, number 1 versus number 16, the underdog on a tear versus the established, the powerful, the one who's standing already all the way at the top of that mountain. This reminds me so much of Rocky.
I was about to say, it's
Dan
Rocky.
can get in there and he can stand up for all the rounds, keep putting those points up. It will require not a lot of missing. It's going to require a sharp mind and a good way to deal with the pressure. Then Dan could put on a real clinic. But just like the original Rocky, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen a movie from that long ago, I think this is probably going to end very similarly, at least in the outcome. Dan, I love you.
Yeah.
You're representing for the bad guys out there, but this one, I got to agree. It's got to be Cameron all day.
I mean, but could you imagine if Dan actually is somehow able to push this to a sudden death? It would be like the match of the tournament. That'd be insane.
We'd have another, he's in the tournament. We'd have another Lauren on our hands.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But let us go ahead and move forward into the next match. And our next match is going to be Mad Dog Brian Nussbaum versus the Vatriarch Adelaide Spence. Obviously, Spence getting one of the lower seeded spots in this tournament. They are actually the only competitor in the tournament with only 1 win under their belt. They were able to pull out and actually claim the very last spot up for grabs in the elimination match that we had just recently. The thing is, though, you look at number 2 and number 15 and you assume, oh, this is going to be just as easy to call as Cameron versus Dan. I would say, though, that just like Spence themselves, I believe that Spence's knowledge is slept on. I think that they have more knowledge than even they know. And I think that this is going to be a much tighter match than anyone realizes. Obviously, you've got Mad Dog Brian Nussbaum, who was a quarterfinalist in last year's tournament, made it all the way. They're actually, I believe, he was a semifinalist. Lost out to Kelly in that semifinal match. And Brian's knowledge of actors and voice actors is well documented. However, he also has a couple of weaknesses. And like I said, I think Spence has knowledge that they don't even give themselves credit for. So I think this is going to be a much closer match than we might think.
And I agree. If we're just going to jump right into predictions here, I am going to give this almost kind of a 40-60 type split to Brian. Okay. But again, I do agree that while Spence has had some rough matches, they also have expressed that they know that they can do better. Yes. So this is a great opportunity for them to come into this tournament and to just show, maybe not necessarily getting a win, but if they can come in with a strong percentage and push this match, again, another Rocky reference, continuing to push Brian to go the distance, that's going to put a lot of buoyancy under their career, potentially moving into next season. If not I wouldn't be surprised to see Spence get the victory over Brian, but my head and gut has to give it to Brian just based on consistency.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching these competitors, and particularly, I can say that even before I was hanging out with you folks here at Movie Battles, I was a little familiar with Spence. I cannot agree more about what has already been said. I think Spence is one of those competitors where on any given day, you might see something that you'd classify as surprising, maybe incredible as far as performances go, but that's really the way things go with Spence. A lot of up and down and a lot of really impressive performance. But then there's a few weaknesses in there, possibly, as you already intimated, a little self-doubt that comes out of the Vatriarch stepping in against a good opponent. And let's make no bones about it, Mad Dog is, in fact, going to be that tough opponent, that person who, will it be the day that Spence is pushed a little bit further? Will it be the day that Spence steps forward and says, you know, I'm ready for this, I can do it, and shows us what those capabilities really are? I think this one is as close to a coin flip as you might get, despite the difference in numbers. However, I have to give the edge just the slightest because of some of that perhaps inconsistency over to Brian Nussbaum, but I would not be surprised if this one was not just a victory against that prediction, but perhaps even a fairly large victory, because Spence is capable if the day is right and if the wheel goes their way.
Right. I mean, I think both of these competitors are I don't want to completely say inconsistent, because, you know, Brian started 3-0. And, you know, didn't actually got his first loss in last year's tournament. Now he then proceeded to lose another couple almost in a row. But he has done pretty well. But again, sometimes it depends on the day. You know, it really just depends on the questions that are given, the categories that they get in round two. You know, we have seen if Brian gets voice actors, he's going to run away with it. And unless his opponent just has a phenomenal match, he's probably going to win. But if he doesn't, if he gets something that he's weaker in, and Spence is able to get, you know, a stronger round two category, and isn't tripped up by round three, then they could win. So it really is a little bit of a toss-up, but I am going to stick with you guys on this. I think that what Meg said about 60-40, I think that's about right. I do think that Brian has the edge here, but I would not at all be surprised if Spence is able to pull it out. In fact, it would probably surprise them more than anyone.
Quite possibly.
All right. So with that being said, let us go ahead and go into the next match in the tournament, which shows us that we have Mr. VHS, Nazario Montenegro, taking on the gentleman, Patrick Hill. Patrick being another one of those competitors that earned his spot in this tournament in that elimination match just recently. Patrick, and Megs, you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Surprised everyone by claiming
the
third spot with a perfect 5-question round. Just got all 5. Boom, 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 boom. Not even Jeremy Adams, who was also in that group, got all 5. Patrick was able to get that before anybody else claimed his spot, and now he is in the tournament. Unfortunately for Patrick, he has also drawn a high card in Mr. VHS, Nazario Montenegro. Nazario, of course, a strong competitor, was looking really good this season. Unfortunately, he got derailed by someone we talked about in our previous match. Excuse me. Mad Dog Brian Nussbaum, who has proven to be a bit of his Achilles heel. We'll see if he gets another chance to redeem himself later on. But right now, with Nazario, though, taking on Patrick, like I said, Patrick, I'm super impressed with his ability getting into this match. But the question is he up to the task after that? You know, like I said, Nazario is a strong competitor, very strong competitor. And, you know, Patrick, as impressed as I am with him being able to get into this match, I don't think he's going to be able to hold back Nazario. I don't see Nazario beat Boatman in his first match of the tournament last season. I don't think Patrick is going to be the person to bring him down this time. So I am giving this match to Nazario.
And I think it's kind of following along with what I've been saying previously. We saw Nazario have a little bit of a tougher match his last go out, and we then subsequently have seen Patrick do very well in this elimination match that we just had. Yeah. So it may very well depend on the questions. But again, looking at the consistency of these competitors and what they've shown us time and time again, I do have to give it over to Nazario. But with this elimination match, it's not as sure cut as I thought it was. Coming into this, I thought, well, you know, I'm pretty sure I'll definitely give it to Nazario. But then I saw that elimination match and went, oh, okay, this is not as easy a decision as I thought it was going to be. But again, I don't think Patrick very well could not make this easy on Nazario, but I do still give Nazario the win.
Oh, absolutely going to be a tough fight for Patrick in this particular case, but you never know. Momentum is on Patrick's side. Obviously, there's been some very interesting wins going on. He's coming out into this tournament with something to prove. And Nazario is a great movie trivia competitor. I can't disagree with you there. Every single time I watch Nazario, it's the kind of, I think someone said consistency earlier, consistency that always impresses me, because Nazario is one of those competitors where every time a question gets asked, you know, he might miss, but you're not counting on it. That point is on the board for Nazario before the question is even asked. And when he misses, that's when you take it off. You're counting in reverse fighting against somebody with kind of the level of knowledge that Nazario has always been able to bring out in these matchups. I think this is going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for this to be going any way other than what you've both already said. And yet there's something inside me that just says you have to stay with the heat. You know, sometimes somebody's on, sometimes they've got everything going for them. I don't know if it's going to be bad luck. I don't know if we're going to see maybe just one of those moments where somebody misses 2 or 3 questions in a row when you're not expecting it. But I really do feel somehow that this one is not going to go Nazario's way. Sorry for saying it, Nazario. I think maybe this could be your upset right here.
Wow. So you're picking Patrick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Patrick on this one.
All right.
Bold choice. I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Makes things interesting. I gotta say, you know, as much as I'm agreeing with it, I'm like, you know, how interesting is this? We're all saying the same things. Although I think there's going to be some tougher picks coming up in just a little bit. But let us go ahead and let us move on to our next match. The next match in the tournament is the chart master, Hannah Kiefer, taking on the cooler, Chris Diaz. Hannah, of course, also a semifinalist from last year. Hannah is a 3-time #1 contender. Hannah has more than paid her dues in this, you know, in this space, in movie battles. She is, you know, without ever being a champion, already kind of has a bit of a legend around her. And then you've got Chris, who was actually one of the first people to start playing after that original tournament. He and Pardis started things off. And the thing about Chris is that he's always shown decent knowledge in round one. But his first, I believe, 2 matches, I think he was 0-2 in his first 2 matches. He got tripped up by the round 3 in that first one, and then the second one wasn't really his fault. He was against Kelly. But I will say this year Chris has really impressed me. Chris took down Jeremy the Atom Adams, which a lot of people, when they heard that Jeremy was coming in, thought that Jeremy was going to catapult to the tops of the rankings. And Chris said, nope, I'm going to stand right here and take that spot away from you, sir. So Chris has really earned my respect this year. But the question is, has he risen far enough to take down Hannah? Now, obviously, I think the big difference between these 2 competitors is their ethic of how they approach the game. Hannah has gone on record several times by saying that she doesn't study. In fact, she feels that she does better when she doesn't. Whereas Chris, I know Chris studies because he comes in and tells me all the time that he, just learned something, or that, after his last match, he made sure during his second match, he was like, I read all about a Goofy movie. I know that, of course, unfortunately, it was also a Goofy movie question that took him down that time. But Chris definitely does study. So you got these 2 competitors, and it's, like I said, Hannah, last tournament, not only did she make it all the way to the semifinals, was upset by the upset king himself, Lauren Collins. Outside of that, she probably would have made it to the finals. But her first 2 matches, she was perfect. The only person to have more perfect matches in a row is now our former champion, Mad Madam Kelly Meehan, who had, what was it, 5, 6 perfect matches?
Close. Yeah.
It was a lot.
It was perfect accuracy.
I mean, exactly. She retired with perfect accuracy. She didn't 5. Okay, yeah.
5 in a row.
She did not miss a question. And then she just said, I'm done. I'll see you guys later. So, yeah. The only other person that has gotten close to that is Hannah. So that can't be undersold. This is a tough one for me, to be honest. I could honestly see this going either way, but I think I am going to call this for Hannah, just because I don't see Hannah going out in round 1. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Chris is able to pull off the upset here, but I think that Hannah has enough strength and knowledge behind her that she's at least going to make it out of round 1.
And I agree. And just looking back at their numbers, their accuracies aren't that far off. Hannah has an overall 79.5. Chris is sitting at 73.3. So they're not that different. No. However, when I look a little more closely in the final round, Hannah's accuracy is closer to 79. Chris, unfortunately, comes away with only about a 33% accuracy in that final round. So again, I am the numbers queen. Looking at the numbers, I do have to give this over to Hannah again, because we're looking at consistency of being able to have those deeper cuts. Yeah. Chris has made leaps and bounds improvements. I will always applaud him for what he's been able to do this season. I just don't think it's enough at this point to give me enough confidence to say you are going to upset Hannah, who also is just coming off of a very strong performance in an Iron Woman match that we had over at Fallout.
True.
So that is where I stand on that.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely correct. There's no way that people are seeing the real difference between these two is actually not that large, especially in those early rounds, as you said, Meg, which very important that you get off to a good start. More important than that, finishing well. More important than that, getting those points in round number 3 when they're really going to matter, when they're coming in hard and you can rack up big points right away. And I mean, there's a lot of things you can do as we get later into the bracket, a little closer to that, number 8 versus number 9. I'm sure we're going to have even more difficulty figuring out who's going to come out on top. And in this case, I would love to say that I was pulling for the underdog once again. But if you've ever made a March Madness bracket, you know you don't do that too many times. I've already picked a big underdog. I've already got that out of the way. And there's no way you can convince me that the pressure, particularly of those later rounds, isn't going to be the decision maker in this one. It's got to be Hannah.
All right. So that then brings us to our next match, which is Caleb Coho taking on the philosopher Kevin Paas. Now, we haven't seen a whole lot of Kevin this year. He had a match early on, which he unfortunately lost to Amanda, whereas Coho, who also lost his first match of the season, got a second life from the hammer, but I gotta say, he didn't waste it. He got all the way to the number 1 contenders match against Cameron, and where I don't think that match was as close as he would have liked. He also gave Cameron a bit of a fight. So I will say that in this match, the one definitely coming in looking the strongest is Caleb. Looking at this, Kevin actually started 2-0. In fact, his first 2 matches were TKOs against other competitors. He was unfortunately derailed last year by Hannah. He was TKO'd himself in that match and unfortunately has not been able to put it back together. But his loss against Amanda, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that one went to sudden death. It was a very closely fought match.
It did, yes.
Yeah. So, obviously Kevin has his strengths and he has had an entire season now to shore up his weaknesses. So the question is it going to be enough to take down Caleb? I got to say no. Caleb wants it too much. Caleb wants it too much to be taken down by Kevin. I do think that this is probably going to be a close match. How close, I don't know. But I think that Kevin is, I don't think it's going to be a TKO. I think he's going to give a hard fight, a valiant effort. But there is no way that Caleb is going down in the first round of this tournament. He wants that title too much.
And I do agree. They both have the same record as far as win percentage. They're both sitting at 500.
Yeah.
And I have to agree. I think Caleb just wants this more. Do I think Kevin can work and get to that point where he can beat him? Absolutely. Sure. But I think at this point, I believe it's a drive. And I saw Caleb going through this past gauntlet to try and get to that title match last time earlier in the season. And I think this is just going to be something that he's going to fight much harder to get in this match in particular.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting one for sure. Let's talk first about the king. Let's talk about someone with a great sense of style. I'm the elk, so I wear that metaphorical crown of antlers. Couldn't help but admire Caleb Coho's outfit, of course. Caleb is a incredible competitor with a lot of knowledge. I've seen Caleb around for a while now, and I must say, I think Caleb maybe sometimes falls a little bit short in these matches, and that's something that I've seen get to Caleb before. I've seen Caleb maybe a little down about the match not going exactly the way that was expected, but I don't think there's any chance of that right now. As you said, Caleb is incredibly fired up, got to be really in a mood to take a win and to make your name once again after getting so close to the title and then not quite getting all the way there. If you guys have been around Caleb for more than 5 minutes, you have to know that's the kind of thing that Caleb is not going to enjoy, not going to sit back about, and probably not going to be very quiet about either. So looking forward to that for sure. And I mean, Kevin is coming into this matchup looking for that big win. Again, it's that big fight. You're trying to be the one who takes down the person with the much higher number. There's a big gap here between their rankings, at least as far as they were placed in this lovely, lovely bracket. And it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight to the finish. I don't know if Patrick can take the win. If there's any chance for Patrick, it might just be
Kevin
Coho having a moment, you know, in those later rounds, breaking down a little bit and giving that opening. Will Kevin be able to capitalize on that? In this case, I have to go with the numbers again and say, no, Kevin will not be able to. I think the king will remain on the throne for this matchup.
All right, so we are all agreed. I think, though, we are about to get into some matches that are going to be a little stickier. So let us go ahead and bring up our next matchup, and that is going to be the Party Monster, Pardis Jesu Dawson, taking on the Spaniard, David Garcia. Obviously, these two, again, very close in win percentage, both at 500. Pardis just has a few more matches under his belt because Pardis was actually very impressive this season. He started off with a win, and in fact, he only had one loss this season, I believe. Against Coho, right?
I'm double checking now.
Or was it two?
He has had 3 matches this year. He's lost the last 2.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh,
so
that's right. That's
he
right.
lost
He
to
played
Nazario.
Nazario. I forgot. That's right.
In our last road to try and find our champion.
Right. But he was in that. He was in that because of his previous showings. He was actually ranked very high, and I had to put him in that that bracket because he was ranked so high and he had done so well in his previous matches. But yeah, Pardis has done really well this season. David started off with a win, and he only had 2 matches this season. Won, lost the second one, and just hasn't had another opportunity since then. But yeah, I mean, these competitors are so evenly matched. I mean, like I said, they're both 500. I mean, one's 3-3 and one's 2-2. It's not that far apart. It's really not. And, you know, like I said, Pardis was just able to get the right wins this season to put him in, you know, a good spot. But David started off his career with a TKO. And then, you know, just wasn't able to keep it together. But I think that both of these competitors have a shot in this. It's not down the line for either one of them. I think if there's one big difference, though, between these two, and it honestly might not come into play in this match because he has a competitor who's so evenly matched. But David will be the first one to tell you if he thinks he's going to lose. Whereas Pardis is going to try and believes he has the potential to win every match. And to me, there's something about that confidence that gives him just that added edge that I don't think David has overall. I mean, and he's told you before, if this was Star Wars or Inner Geekdom, then he'd be all about it. But because it's Disney, he's just not sure. Whereas Pardis doesn't let that enter into his mind. Pardis is just, he's doing his best. He's going to play his hardest. He always believes he has the potential to win. And plus, like I said, picking against Pardis is like trying to punch Winnie the Pooh in the face. It's, you don't do it unless you just have to. So I got to give the edge here to Pardis. I think either one of them have the opportunity of taking this match away, but I see that belief as giving Pardis just that little bit of edge.
Okay, so for the first time, I'm going to disagree with you. So I'm going to give this to David, but again, it slightly hurts because again, you're talking about Pardis. You feel like you're punching Winnie the Pooh, but you say you don't believe he can come out with the match. But I look back at David's career. His loss this year was against Cameron. You're going up against Cameron. He got slapped with opponent's choice.
It's true.
In that match.
Yeah.
And his numbers were enough to give me that confidence. Okay, he had a stumble there. He's going to recover. And I see him taking this match, but I am not going to be shocked if Pardis is able to continue the streak that he had earlier in this season and take the match. But I'm sorry, I have to just on instinct of what I saw at earlier in the year, I think David's going to be able to squeak this one out. This may be my upset. We'll see if you guys think I have a bigger upset later on, but this is going to be kind of I'm going to step out a little bit here.
Sure.
Well, you know that I have been waiting for this one because there could not be a person better to talk about David, the Spaniard Garcia, than yours truly right here. I have fought in the ring against David Garcia. I have run a league with David Garcia. I have worked the desk with David Garcia. And everything you said about David Garcia is absolutely correct. Great competitor, a lot of knowledge. Maybe not the most confident going into a match. Maybe lets the matches start getting to him a little bit as he steps up. When the pressure is high, those can be the moments where David Garcia sometimes really gets into his own head and starts to lose a step here where that trivia knowledge just fades away. You know it's there. You know the answer, but you just can't make it. And I would love to see an old friend take this matchup. I think it would be amazing if David Garcia could win this match. I'm not, however, Meg, going to agree with you this time because the truth of the matter is, unless, like Clay said, you've got Star Wars on there, you've got Inner Geekdom on there, I think David Garcia is going to go all the way to the final round, going to fight hard, and somewhere in there, that little bit of self-doubt is going to creep in. And I do not think that David Garcia is going to let himself win this matchup. That's my prediction. So I am giving it to the opponent in this case. Pardis, Jessa Dawson, will take this matchup if, I know what I'm talking about. So who knows?
All right.
Again,
so
I have a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach as I'm saying this, but I made my decision and I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, while you were talking, I was going back and forth too. This is a hard match to call. And this is the first one. I mean, obviously, Andrew picked against us with Nazario and Patrick, but this is the first one that it's been true. We don't know what's going to happen here. But let us go ahead and go into our next match, which is going to be Jeremy, the Adam Adams, taking on the Bullet, Brandon Rutledge. Jeremy Adams, Brandon Rutledge, both of these competitors are new to the league. Both of them started just at the beginning of this season. And I will say Jeremy came in with a lot of hype behind him. A lot of people thought that he was going to go far. Unfortunately, he had a stumble in the image of the cooler Chris Diaz. Kept him from moving any farther along a title path. But when Jeremy is impressive, he's impressive. He definitely has his weaknesses and he definitely has his stumbles. Then you bring in the Bullet, Brandon Rutledge. And here's something, you probably do know it because I'm pretty sure that we announced it at one point. Brandon was supposed to be Jeremy's first opponent. He unfortunately had to bow out of that match for personal reasons. But he told me later that had he played that match, he believes now, of course, this is if the wheel spins went exactly the same, if the numbers were exactly the same. He believes he could have beaten Jeremy in that match. So, and, Brandon has only had one loss, as did, Jeremy. Brandon's only had one loss. They're both 2-1. They're in these positions for very interesting reasons. But they both ended up 2 wins, 1 defeat, closely matched here. Like I said, Jeremy's loss was to Chris. Brandon's loss was in his first match against the King, Caleb Coho, who was determined to make, because that was his opportunity at his second opportunity at a title path that was given to him by the Hammer, and he was not going to be denied. In both of Brandon's other matches, he's performed very, very well. Obviously his second match or his third match, he had a little bit of a hiccup against Tony, but was able to pull it out, and get that playoff spot, or get that, get this spot in the tournament. So both of them have shown us great strength, and both of them have also shown us stumbles. So it's just the question. Like I said, Jeremy came in with hype, but I don't think as many people knew as much about Brandon. I think that they would have been given equally as much hype had, these things been known about them. So I see them as very, very even. I mean, it's honestly, it's just a matter of flipping a coin. It's who's going to have a better day that day. I think they play each other 10 times. They each win 5. I really think that they are that evenly matched. But if I got to flip a coin, if I got to pick who's going to be on that day, I think it's going to be Jeremy. I think that Jeremy is going to sneak this out. And I unfortunately feel that it's going to be on a question that Brandon's going to kick himself for. I think it's going to be some sort of flub or something like that. But I do think that Jeremy is going to sneak this one out.
And so speaking of flipping coins, looking at my paper as I was making out my predictions before we started, like I literally have Brandon, Jeremy like crossed out multiple times because I could not make up my mind here.
Yeah.
But what I ended up with, they actually both have, if you round it up, they both have a 78% accuracy. So they are about as evenly matched as anybody in this tournament.
Yeah.
So it is
their accuracy, their win percentage, everything is exactly the same.
Yes, they're all straight across the line. But at the end of the day, I did say that I am going to be picking Brandon in this match. There is something about him when I watch him play, something about how he takes the game seriously that's giving me the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you the benefit that you're going to be able to bring this out. Jeremy's probably not going to make it easy on him. Just as we've been saying, I don't think it's going to be an easy match, but I do think, and I am going to hitch my cart to Brandon on this particular day.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising that we're starting to see some trouble between all of us here because this is a tough match to call. When we started out, we were talking about the 1 seed versus the 16 seed. Of course, we're going to have a lot of calls for number 1. Of course, we're not going to see too many surprises in those first few picks. But here, we're talking about, I believe in this tournament, this is the 7 seed effectively versus the 10 seed. And as you said, they're 2 numbers apart, but they could not be any closer when you actually start to break the numbers down. Yeah. Almost exactly the same as far as competitors go. So you can do whatever you'd like if you want to call this matchup's outcome. You can flip a coin. You can ask a psychic. Me, I thought about it long and hard, and I said to myself, you can't make this decision. Finally, I just had to do it. And Meg, I'm with you because I'm biting the bullet on this one and going with Brandon to take this matchup. Although I will say, right up front, I have no real idea where this one's going to go. And I think that, Clay, you were very right when you said good day, bad day for somebody. That really could be the deciding factor here. All it's going to take is that tiny little bit to pull them apart. And we'll see who comes out on top. Officially, though, forgive me, got to lock it in. Brandon for me.
All right. So that brings us to our final match in round number 1. And that is going to be the litigator, Lauren Collins, taking on the fairest, Amanda Van Heil. These 2 competitors, we all know what Lauren did last year in the tournament. He bears the name Upset King for a reason, because every single match in that tournament, we said, oh, I think it's going to be close, but Lauren's going to lose. Oh, it's going to be close, but Lauren's going to lose. We didn't have him going past the first round. And he ended up being a finalist. He played Kelly in that finals. And yes, she ended up knocking him out, but
it was Kelly.
Yes, exactly. It was Kelly, and he pulled out some amazing say what you will about any one of those matches. They were exciting to watch because every single one of them came down to the wire. Most of them, you thought the other person had it sewn up, and then Lauren just squeaked it out. So Lauren has this ability to defy expectations. And then you have Amanda Van Heil, who, when she came in the first group, the first tournament, was highly touted in that first group, and became technically the third number 1 contender because Hannah got it twice in a row. But became a number 1 contender. Lost that match to Nikki, but even as it started to look like the league was passing her by, in last year in the tournament, she barely squeaked out a win against her husband Dan, who filled in for her competitor who was unable to make it. And then she unfortunately got TKO'd by Brian. But then she comes back with 2 very strong wins at the beginning of this season, breaks her streak of win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Finally got out of that pattern. But then she unfortunately just couldn't get started against Nazario. Still took him all the way to the 3rd round, though. Made that as tough of a match as she could after a tough round 1. So when I look at these 2 competitors together, you've got, a competitor who everyone dismissed from the beginning, and then a competitor who started off strong, but has now been a little inconsistent. So when I put these 2 against each other, number one, I was really excited to be able to put them against each other, because I think that regardless win or lose, I think this is going to be a great match for both of them. I think this is going to be an exciting match to see both of them take part in. But I feel in this that I have to learn from my mistakes last season, and I can't pick against Lauren, at least not in the first round of a tournament setting. So I got to choose Lauren to at least get that first win in the round. I think it's going to be a strong match for both of them. I think it's going to be an exciting back and forth, but I do think that Lauren is going to eke this out. Maybe he gets another ridiculous 5 that none of us expect him to get. Maybe, Amanda gets a 2-point question from a film she hasn't seen, like Hannah. Maybe all sorts of different things that could happen. But I do see Lauren pulling out this match.
And I am going to have to agree with you. I think we all underestimated Lauren last season with the tournament, and I don't feel comfortable making that mistake again. And it's not like he just goes through a tournament and then he just kind of winks around for the rest of the season.
No.
He's had some good showings this season even. So it's giving me confidence in saying, yes, he surprised us last season. And I think while he's not in the same position of being the strong underdog this season with the tournament, I think he has proven enough that I'm going to give him the edge out over Amanda, but I will always enjoy seeing Amanda take her shots. And I think she is going to make this into a strong and great match to watch, but I'm not going to discount Lauren again.
Well, and to that point, Megs, I didn't even think to mention this. Lauren really only had one-on-one match this season. He ended out last season. There really isn't a second and third place in a triple threat. There's one winner, but he did last longer than the other competitor in that match. Then, he did in his only one-on-one match. Number one, he got to the final 5 of the elimination gauntlet. And then while he did lose to Boatman in that title hunt, he was the only competitor that Boatman did not TKO.
Very true.
In that run. So that shows you the strength of competitor that Lauren is.
Yeah, it's a big surprise what happened with Lauren before, and obviously that's weighing heavily on the minds of both of you as you make your picks today, because I'm hearing a lot of things as you talk, and a lot of these things are exactly what I was thinking about. Strong recent performances by Amanda, the worries about all the different things that could happen in this matchup and make your prediction go awry when you're talking about someone like Lauren, who, as you said, just came out and absolutely destroyed anybody's bracket last time, made sure that all of the predictions were wrong. Sometimes somebody comes in and does that. And if I were sitting in either of your positions, having made that decision before, not wanting to make it again, I would absolutely agree with you on the outcome of this matchup. Luckily, I wasn't here last year, and I'm hearing a lot of prevaricating, a lot of second guessing, even in the way you're talking about your pick on this one. I will not make the same mistake as you and fall into the fallacy on this one. I'm going with the numbers. I'm going straight down the line, and absolutely Amanda for the win. Upsets be damned.
Okay.
All right. I gotta say that would be an exciting thing. Plus, I mean, unfortunately, it might put Amanda back into that pattern of lose one, win one, because she did lose her last match after winning 2 straight. Of course, I think it'd probably be better than win 2, lose 2.
True.
I mean, and if Amanda does win, I just want to throw this out there. I know how we all picked Cameron, and I'm not changing my pick one little bit. But wouldn't it be interesting on this corner of the bracket to see Amanda move forward against maybe Cameron's opponent? I'm just thinking that could be fun.
I mean, they did go to sudden death last time. It was a fun match regardless. But yeah, okay, so that is round number 1. Those are all of the matches that we know for sure are going to happen. But based on the picks that we made, we are now going to project the rest of our bracket. So we're going to start in the northwest corner with our picks here. I know that in that I chose Cameron taking down Dan, and that would mean that he would face Lauren, who I projected to take down Amanda. In that, for me, you know, as we said, it's been dangerous to choose against Lauren, but we all saw what happened when Lauren took on Kelly. I don't think that it's going to be that heavy of a takedown, but I do think that Cameron has the knowledge on his side. I think that Lauren might surprise us all with how close that match is, but I do give Cameron that win. So Megs, for you, same matchup.
Mm-hmm. And I have to agree with you. I think Lauren may surprise us with how far he pushes Cameron, but again, I'm getting reminiscence of Kelly and Lauren with Cameron and Lauren. So I have to stick with Cameron on this one, but again, Lauren surprises us. I think it might be closer than people are going to think automatically.
Sure. All right. And Andrew, you've got Cameron versus Amanda.
Well, I mean, I guess it's probably an easier decision for me than it was for you guys, because you had to fight all those deep down instincts to pick Lauren and go with the upset. I'm hearing you say the same things that you were just lamenting. It's going to be a close match, but I don't think Lauren can pull it out. That must have been a real tough decision for you guys. On my side of the fence, we've got a middle seed versus the number 1. This is going to be easy for me. It's got to be Cameron moving forward in my bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you there. So then moving into the next corner, I guess the northeast wing, we have I chose Brian going over Spence, and Pardis taking down David. So that has Brian and Pardis. I do think that this is closer than it might look on paper. But I think that Brian, with that kind of back pocket ace of knowledge of actors. I think he's going to be able to pull this out over Pardis. I'm calling Brian there. So Megs, you have, I believe, Brian versus David. Is that correct?
I do, yes. And I am hearing what you guys are saying about David's confidence and just kind of getting in his head. I'm going to say I'm going to call things that be not as though they were. This win over Pardis is going to catapult him into a little more confidence, and I see him taking Brian in this match.
Oh, all right.
This might be my dark horse pick. We're going to see how the rest of this plays out. But for now, I'm going to give David the benefit of the doubt that he's going to rise to the occasion in this tournament.
All right. All right. So Andrew, I believe you have the same pick I did, Brian and Pardis.
I did, yeah. And I gotta say, I mean, first and foremost, Meg, let me just, as an old friend of David, say thank you for all the confidence that you're showing in him. I'm sure that's the kind of thing that somebody like David needs to move forward. And I do wish him all the luck. I had him going out in the first round. Sorry, buddy. I didn't want to say it, but it had to happen. And now you look at Brian coming into this one, you look at Pardis coming into this one. I'm thinking, this is going to be an interesting matchup, no matter who ends up in it. But in my scenario with Brian versus Pardis, I just don't know that Pardis can do everything necessary to stay all the way here. I see this being a matchup, in my mind at least, it's going to be close most of the time, but always that little gap. I think maybe open that gash early and just never let the gap close. That's what I see happening here. And of course, I'm talking about opening the gash and keeping your distance. I'm talking about the prediction that everyone's expecting I'm going to make right here. I'm going to go with Brian. I think the numbers are there. I think the confidence, the ability is all there. And it should be a great matchup either way. But David, I knocked you out in round one, but at least I'm predicting someone will get revenge for you right away. Okay?
All right. So then now going to the Southeast, we are going to change things up because I think the person with the most different pick in this category was Andrew. So Andrew, you have Patrick taking on Brandon, I believe.
Well, you are correct. This is it. This is my Cinderella showdown. I picked a lot of picks straight across with the numbers, but these are the ones where I went against the grain right out of the gate. And I do feel strongly about these competitors. I think we're going to see a hell of a matchup here. And I think if my predictions are correct, if these are the competitors that we do see here, both are going to have a lot of confidence coming into this round. They're both going to be coming off of what could be said to be at least good wins, maybe even really, really big wins. I mean, this is maybe the hardest one for me because I do think that with my picks, you're gonna see these guys being pretty close in this matchup. I'm gonna go with my gut on this one. I'm not 100% sure. Let's stay with it all the way. I had confidence. I'm going to keep that confidence about my Cinderella pick to move forward. And Patrick, I'm going to give you the win here. Again, I just got a feeling deep down inside. And sometimes you got to go with your gut. You got to make that out there pick if you want to win all the money. There is money on this, right?
I mean, you can always put it on against somebody, I guess. I don't have any money on it.
Oh, sorry. I was making some prop bets with the hammer earlier.
Okay. I was about to say, I think it might be a little unethical if I put bets on it. All right. So, Megs, you have Nazario versus Brandon.
Yes, I do. And again, this side of the bracket, I went a little bit more with my heart versus my head. Sure. And just with this one, again, believing that Brandon has what it takes in him, even though he hasn't quite fully been able to show it, I think I see him taking it from Nazario. And this one, Nazario has definitely shown that he deserves to be in the spot that he was. But on this circumstance, against this type of competitor, I see Brandon being able to take this one.
All right, so that leaves me picking Nazario and Jeremy. oddly, this is funny because Nazario was the person that suggested Jeremy for the league. And when he suggested him, because Nazario also suggested Kelly, he was like, man, I keep suggesting people that are never going to let me win the title. And I will say, where, like I said, I think that Jeremy, I think that we did him a disservice expecting so much out of him. Jeremy has actually been a strong competitor, but for whatever reason, we expected more than was there. Jeremy is a tough competitor. He knows his stuff. In fact, while he might miss some things that other competitors know, he knows some things that no other competitors know. And so it's a tough, middle ground there. But then also Nazario, I think, is another one of those competitors that is way better than he ever gives himself credit for. So I think if Nazario gets to play the Jeremy that we've seen so far, he's probably going to win. But if Jeremy is able to get the right combination, gets the questions that he needs, and is able to dazzle with the knowledge that I know he does have, then he's got a very strong shot here. But I think that's more unlikely than the other possibility. So I am going to give this to Nazario, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremy pulls out a surprise. So that brings us now to the southwest corner. And I believe we all chose Hannah taking on Caleb Coho. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. So Megs, we're going to start with you on this.
Yes. And while I give all the respect to Hannah for what she's been able to do and how she can just come in with some very impressive knowledge, as we've also said, she professes to not study. And she definitely has those things that are going to trip her up. Those are things I don't see Caleb letting happen. Again, he wants this too much. Mm-hmm. So I do see Caleb taking this match over Hannah.
Andrew?
Yeah, no, I mean, first let me just say that no matter who ends up in this matchup, no matter who ends up winning it, we're talking about a very difficult part of the bracket. A lot of people don't always think about exactly how those numbers break out because, of course, you have your 1 versus your 16. But let's look at our prediction here for 1 second. And remember, if we're all correct, this is the number 4 versus the number 5. This is not an easy matchup for either one. And this part of the bracket can be a meat grinder sometimes. It can take a great competitor and reduce them to the very basics. It can take someone from maybe not as respected a pedigree and show what they can really do. So this is a tough match and a very tough spot to be in this tournament. Someone who moves on from here is definitely going to deserve that spot. And it's so close. These two are very, very much going to be evenly matched. It's going to go all the way. I think this could be the sort of thing where we see the beginnings of a sudden death happening, maybe. This is the kind of matchup where that certainly is possible. And it's a hard pick to make, but you gotta love a man who will wear a crown. So I'm going to go with you, Meg, on this one. I'm going to say that we are in lockstep on this corner of the bracket, at least, and say I as well will be picking the king to reign supreme on this.
All right. So for this, you're right, Andrew. This is a tough one to call because it is the number 4, the number 5. Obviously, they both started last season, but like I've made the analogy before, they both come kind of from 2 different eras of movie battles, because Hannah comes from the first group, which was basically just, you got the knowledge you got. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And Caleb is very much of the school of thought of you study, you work hard, you get better. But something that we haven't talked about that Hannah has in her back pocket, which has won her more matches than I can count, is she has a very ridiculously strong ability to guess. I have seen her with a guess basically perfect in an opponent's choice of package films, and steal every single question, not having any clue, just guessing the right answer every single time. Now, she is not 100% with her guesses, but she has a very strong movie knowledge base. And so that makes her educated guessing very strong. And so I believe that a lot of competitors from Caleb's, kind of school of thought take competitors like Hannah for granted and just assume because they're not studying that they can't beat them. And we have seen in at least two of Caleb's, I know specifically one of his losses and one of his almost losses, that he lost because he didn't listen to the whole question, or he jumped to conclusions, or he went too quickly. He assumed he knew. He assumed he was going to win. He got a little too cocky. Now, has it been a little while since he's done that? Yes, but he did it twice. So you've got these two things coming up against each other. And I just think, whereas, yes, Hannah got TKO'd in her she got knocked out in her last match with Boatman. So I think these two play 10 times. Caleb wins probably 8. But I believe that probably one of those ones that Hannah wins is the first one. So I'm giving this to Hannah.
And this is the other one that I was just back and forth based on my predictions as I was going through. I was like, crossing out Hannah, crossing out Coho, crossing out. And I had to land on Coho, but I would not be surprised if Hannah would be able to guess her way and logic her way over Caleb.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then that brings us into our semi-final matches. Let's see. Let's start with Andrew. Talking about Cameron. You have Cameron taking on Caleb Coho. This would be a rematch of their most recent #1 contender match. Do you see that playing out any differently, or do you think that history repeats itself?
I've got to say, I think that history repeating itself, maybe not 100% of the way here, but I think we're going to see a lot of the same things, because one thing you can say about both the competitors in this matchup, they are specific and very driven people. You're not going to see a lot of change. You already talked about the king, Caleb Coho, maybe where that little bit of cockiness or assuredness can be a problem. And I foresee those same problems popping up again and again for Caleb. I see Cameron coming in here, obviously the #1 seed, looking to prove something. But after 2 matches, you go in, you get your wins, and you're coming up against someone like Caleb. Maybe Caleb has a stumble earlier that Cameron sees. I could see Cameron not overlooking Caleb, but maybe getting a little too relaxed for just a moment in this matchup. And I did not leave myself an easy decision over here, because I went with the numbers on this side of the bracket for the most part, and everything that it brought to us is now Cameron versus Caleb. which we've seen. We should have a good sample set on this, but I don't know. This is the one for me, Meg. Crossing it out on the paper, back and forth, back and forth. What are you going to do if you're going to make the pick here in this round? And in the end, I would love to see either of these guys move forward. As you can tell, even right now, I'm looking at it in front of me and I'm saying to myself, I'm just not sure what's going to happen here. So I am going to, right now, I'm going to call my pick. I can't put it off any longer. I can't say I don't know, because that's why we're here, is to make predictions. So fingers and toes, every prayer in the world going out that maybe I can get this one right. Caleb Coho for the win.
Wow. All right.
And even now, I said it and I still don't know. Can I change? No, I'm Caleb.
All right, Megs, you chose the same matchup. What do you got?
I did. And Andrew, I'm going to give you a little bit of an out because I also was kind of going back and forth on this, but I have stuck with Cameron repeating his streak in this tournament. And I think that's going to continue because I'm going to have him repeating history and again getting the victory over Caleb. So one of us is, if everything else falls according to plan, one of us is going to be correct, and I will give you all credit for pushing me to make a tough decision. So we'll see.
Not
an
easy one, Meg. Not an easy one at all.
All right.
And but also, I enjoy that this is probably a worst case scenario for the Hammer. So I'm going to enjoy this.
Oh,
yeah, he won't enjoy that.
Didn't think about that, did you?
All right. So you guys basically split the difference after picking the same matchup. I chose a different matchup. I chose Cameron taking on Hannah, which is once again old school versus new school. And whereas I thought that Caleb might be taken down by hubris, I don't think Cameron has that same weakness. I think that Cameron's just sheer knowledge combined with the fact that he does work at this, he does study. I think that he will take down Hannah. I think that it'll be a fun match. But I think Cameron, if that is the match that we get to, will take down Hannah without too much sweat, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Very good.
All right. So over on the other side, I think we're all in
we're all different
spots here. So I'm gonna start with Andrew because I remember what he chose. You've got Brian going against Patrick, I believe, which would actually be a rematch from last year's round one in the tournament. Brian took that match.
Well, I mean, here we are, and of course, I said it, everyone loves to root for an underdog. Everyone loves a Cinderella story. You take yourself from the humblest of beginnings all the way to the greatest of glories, and that will almost certainly not happen even here. I can only say it for so long. At this point, the glass shoe, not only does it not fit, somebody broke that thing into a million pieces. I was with you all this way. I went this deep with you. My underdog pick. I love you, but it's all over now. But the crying, I think we're seeing that repeat happen. I think I've got to go with the number 2 seed in the semifinals. There's no way I could not say that the Mad Dog's going to howl, move forward into the finale. But much love to my fallen Cinderella story here. Nothing lasts forever, and it was fun while it did last. Mad Dog Brian is definitely going to take the win here if my other predictions are correct to this point, because who knows, right?
All right, Megs, and I believe you had, was it David and Brandon?
I do.
Okay.
Yes. So I have both of these guys on this side have kind of worked their way through some adversity to get to this point. So now I've kind of got my two heart picks up against each other. So this is a little bit of a tough predicament to have put myself in. I did put myself into it, I will admit it. But in this instance, I'm going to give the slight edge to Brandon. Again, just based on some things that I've seen out of both competitors, I think Brandon's going to gut it out and be able to stay in that mindset above what David has shown us so far. David's gotten himself to this point, but I think Brandon is going to be a little too much for him to handle at this point.
All right, which brings it down to me, and I chose another rematch. Brian taking on Nazario. If this happens, it would be Brian Nazario 3. And here's the thing. In both of the previous matches, Brian won. The first one, he kind of snuck it out against Nazario. Nazario got a tough 2-point question and just wasn't able to keep track, and ended up barely losing out to Brian. And unfortunately, in their last match, a #1 contenders match, Brian was able to TKO Nazario. So, so far, whatever has happened, so far, Brian not only has won, but he's increased how much he wins by. But much like another matchup of 3 matches where where one person took down the first 2, I think we're going to get a reversal of fortune in this third match. And I believe that Nazario is finally going to get that win against Brian. I think that this being in the tournament and also him being hopefully healthy when we play this match, poor Nazario, will give Nazario the edge he needs in order to pull this out, make this happen, and get to the finals of this tournament. So, with that being said, as quickly as we can, we are going to talk about our proposed finals. For Andrew, I believe you have Coho taking on Brian. So, which is a matchup we have not seen yet. So, how do you see that matchup playing out?
Well, I mean, I did go ahead and save myself the really difficult decision with my last pick on Coho by not setting the #1 and the #2 up against each other here in my finale. I think what we're going to see here, I do think Brian and Caleb both definitely have the ability to make it this far. If my predictions are correct and they face off in the ring, it will be exciting. As you said, first time we'll be seeing these guys go up against each other. We've talked a lot about Caleb. Obviously, I haven't going this deep in the tournament. I've mentioned a few things. You guys have said a few things. And I think a thread that's come up again and again with Caleb is it's not a lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of confidence. It's not a lack of ability or drive or anything like that. But every now and then, Caleb has these little tiny stumbles in a match. And it's not huge, but it can be a couple questions. It can be something that throws Caleb off, even for the briefest of moments. And I think that through a tournament like this, you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4 matches to get to this point. This will be the 4th match up against an incredible competitor. I do think that Caleb is going to have to fight hard to not have that moment occur. And through 4 matches, the way the probability works out, I just don't think it's possible. If patterns hold, I think Caleb will have one of those moments. Maybe not even in this match, but even if it's not in this match, that could be enough to shake that confidence. Meg, you are right. Caleb clearly wants this going in. And obviously Brian, no slouch, not going to back off. I think we're looking at a knockdown drag out. If this is the finals, I will be thrilled to watch every second of it. And I will be sad to say that I'm going to go ahead and not stick with you any longer here as well, Caleb. I'm going to say the crown falls. I'm going to say Brian takes the whole damn thing. But again, especially the latter half of these predictions, I just have to reiterate, because Meg said it and I've said it, and I believe you said it as well, Clay. I just don't know if we can make it as clear as it needs to be. Some of these picks are incredibly difficult. Some of these players are so close. We were talking earlier about a matchup with two people with the exact same numbers. That's how close some of these matchups are. And then you start to talk about the variables and the intangibles. So I'll give the win to Brian, but nothing would surprise me at this point. And if I even make it to the finals with the correct predictions, I will be over the moon at how well I did, because some of these matchups just too close to call. That's why we get paid the big bucks, right? We are getting paid for this, right, Clay?
We'll talk about it. All right, Megs, you have, I believe, Cameron versus Brandon.
I
so
do.
How do you see that playing
yes. I see this playing out. Yes, Brandon has made some incredible leaps in order to get to this point, and I have every confidence that he has a wealth of knowledge that is going to be put on display here. But you're dealing with someone who started out 3-0 with such a strong performance, was no slouch when it came to the 5-round format. I think the 5-round format is going to be what makes the deciding factor, because this is a tournament final. You got to change some variables up here a little bit. So given that consistency and that change in format, I am going to say that Cameron is going to take the tournament final.
All right. So I have Cameron versus Nazario for the tournament final. And as Megs pointed out, that will be a 5-round match. And honestly, Nazario has not yet played in a 5-round match, in at least not in movie battles. I don't know if he has in any other league. Cameron has, and we actually saw where round number 3 proved to be Cameron's undoing, unfortunately, in that
it was
match.
One question.
It really was one question that it was a 6-point swing, because it was neck and neck right before that. And he was able to make up a little bit of ground, but not that much. And then like I said, Nazario, I don't know how he would do in a 5-round match. Or 5-round match setting. But what I don't see is Cameron repeating that same mistake. It's not like players that we've seen in the past that just didn't understand the format of like the speed round, the round 4. It was just one question that he just in a category that is typically a strength for him, and it just happened to be one question that he just didn't know. I think it would be quite a coincidence for lightning to strike twice. I think that Nazario is one of the few competitors that might be able to slip past Cameron in a 5-round match scenario, but I don't think it'll be this time. I think that Cameron becomes a 2-time #1 contender and wins this tournament. But those are our picks. Those are what we think is going to, and
could go awry at any point. And I would not be surprised nor upset.
Right. Nobody can say for sure what is going to happen, no matter. Wrong. Cow was wrong. Megs, you're wrong. Elk,
I picked your boy.
as always, great, but wrong. Entertaining, though. Entertaining. I enjoyed your reasoning. Very well thought out. But, and of course, the cow is always wrong. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Duh. I always know. How many times do I have to tell you guys? I know what's going to happen. I always call it. I told you guys from the beginning it was going to be Caleb and Cameron duking it out. That is how things go. All right. So I'm going to tell you how this tournament's going to go. All right. So obviously,
Do tell.
Cameron and Dan. Oh, duh. Cameron. Brian and Spence. Who cares? But Brian. Let's see. Nazario and Patrick. Nazario. Let's see. Hannah and Chris. Hannah. Loser, but less of a loser. Let's see. The King Caleb Coho taking on Kevin. Are you kidding me? It's King Coho, of course. Let's see. Jeremy and Brandon. Jeremy's dead to me. Okay. Jeremy is dead to me. Brandon's taking that on. Let's see. Pardis and David. I don't care. Let's say David gets lucky and gets something right. Okay. Let's see. Amanda and Lauren. I don't care. But sure, just for giggles, let's say Lauren. All right. So then obviously Cameron wins, Coho wins. I guess Brian wins. And Brandon wins that one. And then Brandon beats Brian. You guys are doing this to me again. Cameron, why are Coho and Cameron on the same side of the bracket? Can anybody tell me that? Huh? Why is Coho not number 2? You guys,
little things called numbers.
You guys are ridiculous. Yeah. Obviously, Voltron didn't work out last time. It's hard. It's like it's choosing between your children. But I'm gonna say Cameron again. Caleb's gonna get it one of these times, though. He's going to get that gold. And then, of course, Brandon's such a strong up and comer. But it's gonna be Cameron again. Cameron and Boatman doing it again at Blowout. That's how it's all going to go down. All right. I know you guys are so excited to see me, but I'm done with you now. Go home. It's been your pleasure. Well, called that one.
You did, sadly. But okay, he comes in and says I'm totally wrong, but his finals were the exact same as mine. Sorry, buddy.
It's true. I think he just likes believing that everyone's
you
wrong.
know what? I let him ramble, but words. You all know, the audience knows. We're on the same page. He's really not that special. It's fine.
It's true. It's true. All right. Well, thanks to all of you out there for watching this tournament special, and let us know what you think. Feel free to send in your brackets. We will make a bracket available on the Flying Cow Facebook page. You can feel free to check that out and make your own bracket. Post those. Let us know how you think this is going to go down. Do you think that one of us got it more right than the others? Do you think the hammer's right? I mean, like Meg said, ultimately they ended up in the same spot. Yeah, who knows? Feel free to, like I said, make your own predictions. Let us know. Post them in the group. Post them on Twitter. Wherever we can see them, let us know. But I do hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe, comment, let friends know about this. We got a lot of stuff going on. Check out the Flying Cow podcast page and everything that we are doing over there. But until then, in order to see what's coming next, you got to stay here. You got to stay watching. And as always, who?
Mm.